Welcome everyone, as we learn the segment known as For the Shabbos Table, made possible by a grant by the Rubin family, who graciously sponsors this year all over the world every week. What a amazing use of money. And we learn for their gesund, parnasa, nachas. Also, they have a special request that we should daven for them to have a healthy ben zachar. We know it says in this week's parasha, "V'asuli mikdash, v'shachanti b'soicham," should make a mikdash. And although the Mishkan was only for 40 years, and the Torah dedicates so much space to the Mishkan, Ramiller says it's because the Mishkan is a blueprint for the Jewish home, which we're supposed to make into a mikdash mat. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch in Siman Kuf Mem Vav Sif Daled, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is learned by everybody, says that there's a minig when people become a chassan and kala, a bride and a groom, to give a bracha sha'zivig oila yafa, that the zivig, that the match, should rise in a beautiful way, oila yafa. And the Stei Chemed also brings down that this is a minig kadmin, and he had a little bit of different words, sha'zivig yale yafa. So it's well known that the Satmar Rebbe, Zech Tzadik, the Kodesh Avrach, Schusi Yagan Aleinu, asks, why is it zivig oila yafa? Why isn't it zivig oila toiv, like mazel tov? And he says that the gematria of yafa is 95, and he says it just happens to be that the 95th mitzvah in the chinuch, the record of mitzvahs, the 95th mitzvah is v'asali mikdash v'shachanti b'seichim, to make a mikdash. And therefore when it says zivig oila yafa, it's referring to that directive that it's expected of the husband and wife to make themselves a mikdash, to make themselves a sanctuary. So our learning is a pyramid where we build on the thoughts of the giants. Now you'll say, how could anybody say a chiddush? What, the greater minds of the previous generations didn't think of it? How could anybody ever say something novel? We're so small and so puny. You hear about the dreams of the Gaon, that in a dream the Gaon said he was revealed hundreds of explanations about something in one dream. We can't comprehend how giant these people were. But even so, we know from a Gemara in Chulin that the Torah is ein cheker lisvunasai. There's no end to its understanding. And makam hanichu liavaisai lihiskadol ba. Hashem leaves people room that they also should be able to introduce new thoughts. They say that somebody wrote a sefer on tefillah, and he gave it to the Vilna Gaon for Askama. So Vilna Gaon opened it up, and he saw it says that we start in the morning Shacharis with Adonai Lam, because we know that Yaakov made Mariv, Yitzchak made Mincha, and Avram made Shacharis. And the Gemara says that Avram Avinu was the first one to call Hashem Odin. Lord. And therefore, that's why Shachris, which was made by Avram, starts with Adonai Olam. And the Gra said, wow, what a pshat. So you'll say, how could the guy, he was such a guy and he didn't think of that? But that's how Hashem made the world. He left room for people. So when I heard that the Satmar Rebbe said, Zivig Oyla Yafa, and you have to understand that the word Oyla is used for gematria. Because on the pasuk that Hashem Berech is Avram Bakol, Rashi says, Bakol Oyla Ben. Bakol is 52. It's Oyla Ben. It's gematria 52. So it's that Hashem blessed Avram even with a son. So when it says Zivik Oyla Yafa, so that's how the Satmar Rebbe understood Oyla means the gematria of Yafa. So I'm going to even tell you how I came about with this Chiddush. Since it's Adar, so my mind is already on everything Megillah. So you should know that there's, in the Megillah, Doniel is called Hasach. There's different reasons why he's called Hasach. One is that Haman had him assassinated, so Shechatchuhu Megidulasa, he was cut down from his greatness. But the Chassam Sofer says that Doniel didn't want to have his name in the Megillah because the gematria of Doniel is 95. And Haman is gematria 95. Right? Hey Memnun is 95. And since we're all saying Yamach Shemai and banging when we say Haman, so Doniel didn't even want to have a name that has the same gematria as Haman. So I happen to know that Doniel is 95. And I told you, why is Doniel called Doniel? Because it's the same letters as La Adonai. Because Doniel was the quintessential Eved Hashem. So now Zivig Oyla Yafa takes on a new meaning. That the Zivig is Oyla La Adonai. And we're telling the Chassan and Kala that they should elevate themselves in the service of Hashem. Oh, is that beautiful. You know, I was by a chuppah that Rav Miller was Masada Kedushin. And that wasn't so often. And even when he went to see the Kedushin of his grandchildren, he carried his coat with him. Why? Because he said he had people waiting at home, and when they asked him, who's waiting? Everybody that we know is here. He said, what do you mean? I have a Bayan Rava waiting at home. I have Basil and Beishamai. He meant it. So anyway, I was by a chuppah, and I heard him tell the Chassan and Kala, you should know that right now the Shechina is coming down. It says, Ish v'ish shalom b'neim, Shechina shuya b'neim. When does the Shechina come? It comes right now. This is when the Shechina is coming. So therefore, Zivig Oyla Yafa means that they should both merit to elevate themselves La Adonai in the service of Hashem. That's when it says you make your house a mikdash. What does that mean? What do you do in a mikdash? In the mikdash, you're Meshareis Hashem. You're serving Hashem. And that's why what's one of the brachas that we make under the chuppah? One of the brachas we make under the chuppah is Shakol Bara Lichvaydai. Everything is created for His glory. So that's Zivig Oyla Yafa. I think that's a beautiful pshat. But I want to add that the word Yafa also is the same letters as Piha, the mouth. Piha Pascha B'chachma. Because if there's anything that determines the quality of a marriage, is how the couple talks to each other. That's why we say Kol Chassan v'Kol Kala. The voice of the Chassan, the voice of the Kala. A person should have a special way of talking to their spouse. Their most tender talk should be for their spouse. Now, Shnayim Kruvim Zav, Mikshe Ta'asaisam. The two Kruvim, the two angelic forms that are on top of the Oren in the Kodesh Kodashim, you should make them Mikshe. Their manufacture was very difficult and unusual. Mikshe means that they had to be one piece with the Aron. That means that you couldn't make the statuettes separately and then attach them to the kapayos. It had to be one with the kapayos. It had to come out, it had to be pulled out from the Aron cover. That's a very difficult way to make it. We know, for example, that by the straps, we learned it in the Chok recently, the kisvais or ephod, the shoulder straps of the ephod, they were made separately and then attached to the ephod. That's a normal way to make it. So you design two beautiful statuettes with the wings and with the faces of a young boy and a young girl, Keruvia, like young children, and then you attach it to... No, you can't do that. You have to make it one piece and pull it out from the Aron. Why? For what purpose? So the Oyel Aryeh says a beautiful thing. It's Reb Level Katz, and I'm going to contemporize it a little bit. There are people that think that they could raise their children very American. They're young yet. It's time, baseball cards, and sports, and ballet, and piano, and arcades, and Harry Potter. They'll get a little older, then we'll get down to serious business. It's not that way. You can't take them afterwards and attach them to the Torah. Aaron represents the Torah. You can't make them and then later attach them. It's too late. It's too late already. At 3, we're telling them Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. The Gemara Ksuvah says at 6, Safi like Keturah. Stuff them full of Torah. What they get as the Girsa the Yankisa is so important. Not that you make them like, a good old American boy, and then later, when they get older, you'll introduce to them, the nice things about learning. No. I want to tell you, my Rebbe, my Rabbi, Moshe, I have a good friend who had a school in New Jersey. And it was a very successful school. It was a modern Orthodox school. And he had 5 parallel classes. So because he was really motivated by something very, very admirable, because he wanted to give Rebbeim a full-time salary, he would stagger the English and the Hebrew on different classes. And in some 9th grades, they'd learn English in the morning and Lashon Kodesh in the afternoon. And some classes would have Lashon Kodesh in the morning and English in the afternoon. This way, he could give a Rebbe a full day's work. Ramosha didn't hold it. Ramosha said, you can't give to young child a subliminal message that English comes first. Can't do that. I'm going to tell you even more. My brother married Ramosha's granddaughter. My brother, Yosef Asher, married Reb Ruvain's daughter, Ahuva. When their oldest was going to yeshiva, to RJJ, Abraham Meir, Reb Ruvain told them that if in 5th grade they don't start learning Eilu Metzias, the second parak of Bab Metzia, they want to learn something first, send them to a different yeshiva. He says, we should send to a different yeshiva just because they want to learn a different Masech? Yes. He said, why? So he said, because Reb Moshe said, listen to this. He says, if you learn with a child, somebody's phone is ringing. If you learn with a child, brachas is about what goes on in shul. About Kriya Shema, about davening, about minyan. Children have to know that Yiddishkeit is not only in shul, it's in the street when you find something in the street. That's the first thing he said. The second thing he said is even scarier. He says, if you teach them brachas about going to minyan, about saying Kriya Shema on time, about having kavanah, they'll look at their parents and they'll say, but my father doesn't do this. When you learn about finding a lost article in the street, they're not going to question what their father does. Those are the two things that Moshe said. But you see how he felt it was important what we introduce to children when they're starting off. Girsa the Ankasa. And that's why it has to be one piece. Because you can't just make them a good old American boy, and then when they get 13 bar mitzvah, then you'll introduce them to the Torah. No. I want to add to what Rebbe Leibel Katz said. There's another idea that it's one piece with the Aron. Your child has to be an extension of you. He has to see, his growth has to be from what he sees you do. It has to be pulled from you. He has to see that you're not talking in shul. He has to see that you're opening the door for the ani. He has to see that you sit down with a big Gemara and learn. He has to see that you make a bracha slowly. It has to be an extension of you. It has to be pulled out of you. Now it says about the Kruvim, Ufneim ish el achiv. They faced one another. So there's a clay yakar, a beautiful, simple thing, but it's not simple at all. Not simple at all. Not simple. Made a bracha ready. Not simple at all. Ufneim ish el achiv. The Klei Yakar says that when it says that, remember, these are the kruvim that are sitting on top of the Aron that has the Torah and the luchas and the broken luchas. Represents people learning Torah. Says, Ufneim ish el achiv, I quote the Klei Yakar verbatim. Hamoira gam el hashalom Hanitein la'oyavei Torah. This symbolizes and exhibits the peace that's found by those that learn Torah. This exhibition of them on the Torah and facing each other represents that this is what's caused by Torah. Torah promotes that people get along with one another. That's a message in the Holy of Holies. Now, this is not a simple message. This means that if a person is not a peace-loving person, then he's not absorbing his Torah. Or to put it a different way, it's harsh. People like to call themselves B'nai Torah. If they are not mu'urivim abriyos, if they are not getting along with people, They have not absorbed their Torah. It's as simple as that. And that's the meaning of what the Rambam says in Hilchos Chanukah. We have it on the Paroiches here. Shekol HaTorah kula nitna la'asei shalom ba'olam. The whole Torah was given to make peace. Shenema dracheh darchei noyam. Its ways are ways of sweetness. V'chol nesiva shalom. There's a very unusual personality in the Gemara. He was an outstanding scholar by the name of Geneva. It's mentioned in Shas, and Shas talks about his great scholarship. But when the disciples wanted to stand up for him, they were told, we don't stand up for Geneva. We don't stand up for a Torah scholar? The Ish Merivahu, he's a quarrelsome person. We don't stand up for a quarrelsome person. That person has not absorbed enough the Torah. The Torah has to make a person of peace. If he's not a person of peace, I've said this before, this is something that Ramosha said. Remember that the famous story on Lag BaOmer, where the Heilige Tana, Reb Shimon and his son, had to go in hiding in a cave for many years. A miracle happened, and they ate in the cave, and they existed there for many, many years. And then they were told that they could come out. And they came out, they were so removed from the world of materialism that anything that they saw, they burned to a crisp. So Abasko came out and said, I didn't bring you out to destroy my world. Go back to the cave. So they went back in the cave. They came out 2 years later, and then what they saw somebody walking with branches on Erev Shabbos, and then they said, oh, they're doing it in honor of Zochar V'Shomer. The Ramosha asks, if they became so removed from this world because they were isolated in a cave away from any materialism, what's going to help them to send them back into the cave? They'll become worse. And Ramosha explained that Hashem said, I gave you a Torah Shalom. Go back and learn the Torah with an eye to coexisting with people. You got to go back and learn the Torah. And that's what the Klei Yakar is saying over here. It's so beautiful that he's saying that when it says Pneim Ish El Achiv, this exhibition of the people on top of Torah, they're going to see eye to eye, because that's what Torah does. Now the Keruvim were Persei Knafayim Lamala. Their wings were spread above. Ufneim Ish El Achiv. Now remember again, these Keruvim were the image of a boy and a girl. They represent the children learning Torah. The Aron had the Torah in it. And by the way, that's what's in our Holy of Holies. What's in our Holy of Holies is the education of the next generation. That's Eino Olam Miskayim Ela B'Shvil Tinoik Hevel Tinoik Shel Beis Rabim. The world exists because of the pure learning of the children. That's what keeps the world going. So Reb Leibel Katz says a murdic thing. He says the double message of the wings going up and looking at each other is that we teach the children both Bein Adam L'Makom, their relationship with heaven, and Bein Adam L'Chaveira, one with the other. And that fits beautifully that it's on top of the Luchais, because the Luchais, one commandment, one tablet is Bein Adam L'Makom, and one tablet is Bein Adam L'Chaveira. Then he says something else. Then he says that the wings fingers going up represent prayer. And looking at one another reminds us that we shouldn't just pray for ourselves, but we should pray for each other. And he quotes a ton of Eliyahu. Ton of Eliyahu is the teachings of Eliyahu Navi. It's such an amazing ton of Eliyahu. Ton of Eliyahu quotes the question, the pasuk, that Hashem said, "Zocharti loch chesed nurayach." I remember the kindness of your youth. Avas kluloi soyach. I shut it.
You shut it off, right?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of share.
Okay.
I remember the kindness of your youth, the love of your maidenhood. So now we learn that what was the kindness of our youth? What the pasuk continues on saying, "Lechtech acharayich b'midbar be'eretz lizruah," that you followed me into the desert where there was no vegetation. You went into a desert, 3 million people, where there's no food, no gourmet glass. And you went trusting me. But listen to what Tanav Eliyahu says. Zacharti lo chesed nurayach. What was the chesed that Hashem remembered? HaKavana, that we suffered in Egypt, and kol echad yimishtatev b'tzaroi shel chaveroi. Each one prayed for each other. We were suffering in Egypt, and we prayed for each other. He says, I remember that. And that says, the Tanav Eliyahu, this is very precious. This lesson of when we daven, we should be praying Ishal Achiv and think of each other. It's such a contemporary message. There's so much to daven about each other. I mean, here in Fairways, we have people that are losing their cognitive abilities. It's very scary. Very scary. We could daven for them, and we could daven for each other that we should have our full senses till 120. We have a lot of people here in Fairways that need a shidduch. A lot of older girls. Widows, widowers, divorcees. We have to daven for them. It's a big shidduch crisis going out there. It's 25,000 plus in the Upper West Side that need a shidduch, just in one community. There's so many people that can't make ends meet. They can't afford their tuition. They can't afford their bills. What about all the people that are in chemo labs? There's so much to daven for. Mamish, so much childless couples. And when we do this, Pneim Ishal Achiv, it gives a tremendous nachas to the Rebbeinu Shalom. I want to again thank the Rubin family. I also want to remind you, we do not yet have a sponsor for Tetzaveh. So if somebody out there in the wild blue yonder wants to sponsor Tetzaveh, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Also, we are coming to a close in the dedication of power benching. Anybody that's interested with that, please call me at 718-916-3100. And everybody should have a very wonderful Shabbos.